Life. My name is Ken Burkey, and backed by definitely popular demand, Ginger Jacob, who is our community care director at Green Valley Community Church. She oversees several staff people, but more importantly, not that the staff people aren't important, but hundreds and hundreds of volunteers. And you have a great topic today, and it's something that we're passionate about at Green Valley, but we're really, I think all nonprofits or for-profit companies can really learn from this. You want to talk about not just the what we do, but how we do it.
Right. Exactly.
Talk about that for just a few moments before we get into those steps.
Okay. Yeah. Well, when we're serving others, I really think it really is about how we do it and not what we do. I mean, I think the world really values people's abilities and how smart they are, their outward appearances, their effectiveness, even their generosity. But it really is the motivation behind that. It's the heart. It's how we get those things done that I think really is what matters. Really makes a difference.
And we can fool ourselves by feeling good about what we're doing.
Right.
But what you're saying is the real high impact on how it affects people is how we do it. Absolutely. So you can have two organizations doing the same thing.
Right.
But maybe approaching it from two different angles, and that can have just a huge effect.
Absolutely. It really makes a difference in how people feel, because we're really talking about serving others, and it can be in all kinds of different arenas. But it really makes a difference when it's done in the right way, in the right motivation.
So you have eight ways.
I can't believe you're announcing that.
8 ways. We're going to fit all 8 in because those are the examples of. So how if how is more important than what, then how do we serve people? How do we have an impact in our community or in our world? Talk about that.
Well, I think number one is that it's not about us. It really isn't when you're serving others, and that we need to be humble. We need to check our egos at the door. That is absolutely, I think, one of the most important things. I've had the opportunity to just as an example, this past weekend I had the opportunity of being a part of our Common Ground, which is our Saturday morning food and clothing outreach. And there's a lot of people that are giving out food. There's a lot of ways you can give out food and clothing. Sure. But what I witnessed there were people who are literally saying, I don't care if I wear a suit on during the week. I'm going to be here and humble myself and just serve other people. I'm going to sit down with someone who might be going through a really tough time and listen to them, to just really bring myself down to a level where I can relate to what's going on here.
So how does that make a difference?
Because people are, when you're getting out of yourself and you're looking into someone else's life, you really relate to them. You can really feel what is going on, and I think that makes it's much easier to isolate and say I'm better than, I don't need this. When people really humble themselves, I think their hearts are open and they're more receptive to what they're experiencing.
And I think the people who are, let's use that example, receiving the food, if they just feel like they're in a food line and there's a superiority effect, they're still getting food.
Right, but there's no dignity. There's no dignity. Right. It doesn't make people feel like someone cares for them. That whole factor of when you are sitting with someone and really humbling yourself to be on the same level with them, that just makes that person feel like you genuinely care, and it's more than just a handout.
Right.
So I feel like humbling yourself when you're serving others is incredibly important.
That's kind of the foundation, I would think, that if you go to serve someone or to help someone and there's a sense of superiority, then there's a real limited effect there. But humility kind of levels the playing field.
Absolutely, because there's nothing, selfishness and self-serving people, that doesn't really accomplish anything.
Yeah, I think once you begin to go in with that attitude of humility, you begin to learn we all have far more in common than we have not in common. And there's this sense of gratitude, the old line, there but by the grace of God go I, but you realize, wow, there's just, because of whatever circumstances they're in this situation, but I'm no better than them.
Absolutely.
Something powerful. That's a powerful how we serve.
Absolutely.
Humility. So that's the first one. What's the second one?
You need to be open to change and be flexible and know that you don't have all the answers. Because when you are serving others, you may think that you know exactly how everything should be. I've got it all figured out, sort of thing. And then when changes come or other ideas come your way, you may be adverse to that, and that is not going to work. When you really need to be open and flexible to things that could be done differently.
So-
and that's a difficult, that's a tough one for people sometimes.
Because people don't like change.
Right.
This is the way we've always done it.
Right.
Can you give an example of what that looks like?
Yeah, well, I think in a lot of ways, I think back about our Taking It to the Streets outreach that we've been doing for 7 or 8 years, and how it has changed and evolved as we realized things maybe could have been, we don't even serve necessarily the exact same type of people we started with. Our teams look different, our leaders look different, and it's because people have come and said, have you thought about this? And we're open to that. We are open to other people's ideas and input from people that are involved. And I think that happens in a lot of ways. In our auto ministry, same thing. Sometimes it's time to expand,
Right.
and people don't want to do that. Maybe
Right.
you have to give up some leadership and let someone else lead because they have a gift that you don't, or we need to make our program bigger. So it can happen in a lot of ways.
A lot of organizations, especially churches, struggle with sacred cows.
Right, exactly.
And so if you're continually talking to people about how we do this is more important than what we do, you continue to sacrifice those sacred cows.
Right.
Then people get used to the change. But if you lock in for too long, then people begin to get really comfortable with that way.
And I think the other thing, and we've had to do that recently with our Furnishing Lives ministry that we've had for several years. Well, we realized it wasn't effective anymore. So we had to do that cow tipping and say, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. This need is now being filled by many other organizations. So I think where we can tend to go is change means failure, and it doesn't necessarily. And I think I want people to be encouraged by that just because things are changing doesn't mean, or someone has an idea that's different and it might be better than the one you're working on right now, it doesn't mean it's wrong or that you failed.
Right.
It just means you're open to change.
There's something else healthy about getting rid of sacred cows is we have to check our motives at the door.
Absolutely.
Because we can start to put too much of our identity in what we're doing.
Absolutely.
And so the how, when that begins to change, you have to let go.
Absolutely.
And look at the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
Humility, be open to change.
Right.
3.
Always keep an open chair available for new people coming in. Always include new people. I think it's really easy when you're serving others to get comfortable. And this applies to friendships. It applies to your work environment. It applies definitely when you're volunteering in an organization. Churches are notorious for this. Is that we figure out something and we want to just, oh, this is good. Let's just keep it right like this.
Right.
So we don't let people in. And I think that is
Us 4 and no more.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that is very dangerous. It also doesn't allow your organization or your ministry to grow, and it's not healthy.
Right.
Because it's so wonderful when new people are invited in.
Yeah.
I think that is just always something we need to do.
Well, new people bring in new energy, they
Right.
bring in new ideas, they
Right.
bring in new thoughts, and that goes back to the second one.
Right.
They maybe sometimes challenge us
Right.
with sacred cows, and that's not always comfortable.
Right.
But that how allows whatever ministry or organization to stay relative to what the real needs are.
There's just a culture of having an open chair policy. I think it makes people feel, I think about our moving ministry, and our leader, Bob Cavallo, is always welcoming new people in, and they're very different, all of them. But every time a new person comes in, there's a chance to get to know someone new. It's to see, wow, he or she has different giftings than the rest of us. That's great. They might have new ideas.
Right.
So I just think it's much better when you can really make sure that you are not, hunkered down and we've got it figured out, so let's stay in this little group right here.
Okay, so humility, sacred cows, be willing to get rid of
Right.
sacred cows, have always an open chair for new volunteers, for new input, that's 3. 4?
And always do things with excellence.
Okay,
I think
yes.
that is just near and dear to me,
Yes.
because I think sometimes when we're serving others, over time we can say, oh, well, that's good enough.
Right.
That's good enough for my marriage.
Right.
I mean, I think that's a dangerous place to be. It's good enough for my family. It's definitely good enough for that team I serve on, that I volunteer with. But I think striving for excellence, I think we were created to always do things the best we can. We all grew up, or a lot of us grew up, and my parents, telling me this, you just do the best you can. Why does that need to change? We
Right.
should always continue to do whatever we're doing with excellence. I think that is really important to me. And I think about our funeral ministry, and I think about, there's a lot of ways to do a funeral, but our teams absolutely strive for excellence. We serve every family uniquely, and to the best we can. And I don't want that to ever change. That's a beautiful thing.
No, and so this is the life you have to live, where there's always a little bit of discontent.
Right.
Because you're never going to be as excellent as you want it to be. Yet still, you can't just be miserable in that.
No.
But you always have to have a little bit of what we call holy discontent.
Right.
Of how can this get better. And I think a lot of the times it happens when you're willing to get rid of sacred cows, like
Right.
you said, and when you're keeping open doors and
Right.
empty seats for new people to come in. They will continue to challenge you. Can we do this better? And there is that old saying that, that's good enough for church, and it really should be the opposite.
Right, that's true. There is that saying.
Because in the faith world, we should want to give our best.
Absolutely.
Not for our, and that goes back to humility, not for our pride, but because it gives God honor.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, we're at 4.
Okay.
We got 4 more to go. Humility,
Never
no
do it-
sacred cows,
You're right.
open chair for new volunteers, and always strive for excellence.
Right, exactly. And then also never do it alone. Always do it in team.
Okay, well, let me remind you, just because if somebody's watching, this is how. The how is more important than the what. So
Right.
this is the how. So
Right.
the 5th one
Don't do it alone.
Don't do it alone.
Don't do it alone.
Teams.
Always do it in teams.
Yeah.
And it's not just because it's not fun to do it alone, but also you can do it so much better when
Yeah.
you do it in a group. And I look at our facilitation teams and what the gifts that they each bring, and the way that also allows them to support each other. So
Right.
teams are just literally the only way to serve others and serve them well. I think that's a huge part of how.
Well, and that's the how. That's scripturally just correct. From the Old Testament to the New Testament, it was always about teams. It was about everybody adding, their God-given value to the thing.
Right.
I don't know how it's happened over the years, but especially in the church world, we've come to put people on a pedestal, and there's a few super spiritual people, and everyone else just needs to follow along. And we've just learned at Green Valley that is not true at all. Everyone has gifts. Everyone
Absolutely.
has passions. Everyone has
Absolutely.
amazing abilities. So the how gets really strong when you work with teams. In fact, we
Absolutely.
don't allow anyone
No.
to not be a part of a team.
No, it's really important.
Yeah. Any examples of that? We got
Well,
time.
we've got lots of examples of team, and
Give an example of where that team, though, just is flourishing or that ministry is flourishing because of the team.
I honestly, right now, the one that comes to mind immediately is our grief share teams, because we have, and it's because of that. It's because of all the people that are involved. That there's not one facilitator trying to facilitate, because we do grief share 52 weeks a year, every Tuesday night, where families come in and get help. How can one person or 2 people take care of all those people all year long? So now, as a result of having such a bigger team, we are able to care for people every single Tuesday night all year round, and no one is getting burnt out. So there's that is huge. And then also, because of team, we are able to now care for moms individually, and widows. We're looking at a new ministry where we're going to be activating dads to come together and do something. So all of that has to do with healthy teams.
Excellent.
And we couldn't do it without
Right.
that.
Yeah. It's just huge. In fact, kind of my pet peeve is the majority, I'll just speak for the church world, where our structures in the church world are just not even theologically correct. Because over and over and over, it's about team. It's about people in the right place.
Right.
It's not about a few people trying to do it all. You're still doing the same what, but it's not effective, it's not excellent.
Right. And it's gifting. So when
Right.
you have a team, you also have all those different abilities and gifts that can come together and more effectively serve.
I've learned too, it's not hard to convince people, especially people of faith, what to do. I mean, it's pretty, to
Right.
serve the poor. It's hard though to change how they do it.
Right.
That's the hardest part.
It is. And that's why it's so important to really consider all these things,
Yeah.
because I think they really allow you to serve people so much more effectively, and also it feels good.
Yeah. 6.
Don't duplicate. So I always encourage, when you're looking at how you're going to serve someone or what you're serving, don't do something that is already being done. Really investigate. And sometimes that means as you're doing it, it looks differently than you thought. For example, let me just give you an example of that. We are trying to figure out how to really care for our seniors in our community really effectively. We're doing a lot, but right now we're stepping back and we're going, we need to do some investigation, because I feel like there's things going on out there that we might be duplicating services.
Right.
So we are now investigating and meeting with the county, with our agencies, to try and figure out, okay, what are your loopholes? Let us partner, let us work together. But rather than continue to do something that maybe doesn't need to be done.
Right.
So that's really important to
That's good.
not duplicate services.
In fact, let me go a step further on that. I think sometimes if you're willing to make sure you're not duplicating, then sometimes you find out, well, we should duplicate more. There's not enough of this going on.
Right.
But if your first question is, I don't want to be duplicating something that doesn't have to happen,
No.
you discover what you really need to invest
Right,
in. So,
right,
cool.
right.
7.
You have to do it in love. I think that's just something we all know.
Really?
It's squishy, but it really is. There needs to be love. Love crosses all bounds, and we can talk about all these things.
Okay, give an example of what a specific example of that.
You need to feel what the people that you're serving are going through. Your heart needs to be broken for that. I really go back to always praying for when I'm serving is break my heart for what breaks yours, God's, which makes me do all these things. But when your heart is breaking, when you have that genuine love, then you're standing next to someone. You're not standing over them. You're standing next to them. I'm here for you. I'm going to help you through this. I'm going to help you when you're moving. I'm going to help you when you've lost someone. I'm going to help you get this food to your car. I mean, I think that there has to be love. I think that is really huge when you talk about what versus how.
Yeah, in the word compassion, which we use a lot, compassion is not only feeling what they're feeling, but being willing to do something to stop their pain.
Absolutely.
How do you stay there though? Because it can get tough sometimes. I mean, you see people who start off really well saying, man, I have a real heart, and then maybe it's working with the homeless or working with whoever, I've seen people who are fighting sex trafficking, but you get in the trenches, you get beat up, it's tough. How do you keep a tender heart?
I think that you need to have good people around you that you can debrief with, that lift you up. That really helps me. I need to have time away where I can regroup, regenerate myself. I think that not too much time though, because I still want to stay soft and tender. And I think for me, it's time with God. He gives me, I feel like that we operate when we're serving others in a valley. You really do, because you're serving people that are hurting. So you're operating in a valley, but God gives us these. And every time He gives us these experiences, He will come alongside and say, wow, and you are wowed by what He's doing in this situation in spite of the difficulty. And that energizes me. But again, if you're not doing it alone, that's a huge part of not getting burnout. But I think good people around you, time off, time with God, and team.
Yeah, and there's a little counterintuitive point there too, and that is sometimes in order to get re-energized, you have to have your heart broken, which seems counterintuitive, but it's that brokenness that then allows God to kind of energize you.
And it's true you say that, because I work in this all year long, but where I get energized is when I go to Mexico on a mission trip in the summer. Now, go figure. So you're right. Sometimes that is what it takes to. Just maybe something a little different than what you're doing right then.
Okay, so the topic is the how is more important than the what. Let's review the 7 and then we'll finish with the 8th. Okay, how is you got to do it with humility.
Right.
Second one is
be flexible.
Be flexible. Be flexible, and change can happen. Right.
Invite change.
Have an open seat.
Right.
All right.
Yes.
4.
Do things with excellence.
Do things with excellence. 5 is be part of a team.
Be part of a team. Right.
6 is.
What did we just say?
What did we just say? No, that was 7.
And don't duplicate.
Don't duplicate.
Right.
Okay. And then 7 is
do it in love.
Compassion. Really stay close to that. So, what's the 8th and final way to
give more than you get? I really feel that when you're serving others, when you are laying yourself out there, it doesn't get any better than that. And it is you need to give yourself away, give your life away, and it really is true that it is better to give than to receive.
Yeah, it's in that giving more than you have that then it allows God to fill you back up. If you're only giving what you have, then you really don't need God. You don't need supernatural strength. You don't need that.
Then you can be standing in a food line and handing out food versus really getting to know that person that you are looking across the table at and handing him the food.
When you do these things and you kind of pour yourself out like that too, what it does is it creates miracles you couldn't create on your own.
Absolutely.
So then you get to be a part of a miracle that's bigger than yourself.
And I think that is what so energizes me, is that I see it over and over again. Every time I'm in a team meeting and someone shares a story of, you can't believe what happened, how this person came this night and these other people were there and they were the perfect people for them to meet.
Right.
And you just get, it's so emotional because you see these things that seem impossible, these connections that seem impossible that God does when you put yourself out there and serve.
Cool.
And you do it this way. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Look at behind you. Look at what time it is. Isn't that amazing?
Oh my goodness.
That was fast.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you. You know, these are 8 kind of not steps, but just 8 principles to an effective how we do it is
How
far
to
more
serve.
important than what we do. If
Right.
you want to elaborate more on this, call Ginger at the church. She'd love to talk about this. We're going to do this some more. That was a great topic.
Good. Thank you.
And we're passionate about it, not just at Green Valley, but other churches, other organizations, that it's to heal our community and our world. It's not just what we do, but it's how we do it. So thank you, Ginger.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time on The Basics of Life.
If you believe that